Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We are starting soon. We are allowing folks to join us, but it is a pleasure to have you. So thank you once again and welcome. We'll start at 10:10. Once again, thank you so much for being here. We're just allowing folks to come in. We will start in a few minutes, just giving folks time to join us, but it is a pleasure to have you. Thanks so much for being here. We will start shortly in a couple minutes. Welcome, everybody. We'll start shortly, just one more minute to allow folks to continue to come in, but it is a pleasure to have you. Thanks so much. Okay, so I think we've allowed folks a good amount of time to join us, so we'll just go ahead and get started. First of all, I want to say thank you and welcome to everybody. Hello, good morning. My name is Kevin Gaitan. I work for the Isolation and Quarantine Support Program here in Santa Clara County. Most importantly, though, I'm also a Yerba Buena High School alum. I went to Yerba Buena High School in 2018 and graduated in 2012, so I'm very happy to speak with you all. Go Warriors. I wanted to thank you for your time and for the opportunity to speak with you. The resources that we will be talking to you about today are crucial for the support and the well-being of our communities and our families, of course. And we know that COVID-19 has had a significant impact in all of our communities. And what we've seen is that the most affected communities continue to be those that are historically marginalized and historically excluded. And throughout the pandemic, what we have seen and we've noticed has been a lot of inequities in many different aspects. For example, vaccine distributions, high rates of unemployment, challenges paying rent. But at the same time, what we've also seen is the power and the resilience of our communities, and more than anything, the determination to make it work and to adapt to an evolving situation. So once again, I'm very excited that you are here and for the opportunity to speak with you. We're all working together and making sure that our families are supported and elevated through all of these services. And so I'm happy to speak to you about emergency rental assistance. So welcome, everybody. Next slide. So today we will be discussing a variety of services. There will be a lot of information that will be given to you. Rest assured that this information will be distributed to you so that you can have your own copy. The topics that I will focus on today will be, first and foremost, emergency programs available to tenants. I will also focus on the application process, such as the documents required for an application. I will also provide information about your rights and in the events that you are evicted from your home. And lastly, I will walk you through the process of how to start an application for rental assistance. Today, I will provide information on two very specific programs. I want to emphasize that they are different and have slightly different requirements. A good way to think about these programs is that one program is a state program from the state of California, and the other program is a local program from our county here in Santa Clara County. The first program is the state's Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Its acronym in English is ERA, and I will refer to this program as ERA. ERA assists people economically impacted by COVID-19 through the pandemic. This does not mean that you have to be positive for COVID, and that's a very important distinction that we want to make. What it means is that as a result of the pandemic, you were affected. For example, your work reduced your hours, they let you go from work, or your work was closed because of the pandemic, among various other circumstances. The important thing is that you have had the impact of COVID-19 in order to be eligible for emergency rental assistance. And here are a couple highlights of emergency rental assistance. ERA can assist you with 100% of the rent owed, but this rent must be owed between the months of April 2020 to March 2022. There is a specific timeline, which of course is tied to the pandemic. The maximum that the program pays is 12 months of back rent and 3 months of future rent, which means that you have the opportunity to be assisted with 15 months total of rent at 100%. Again, just reiterating, that is 12 months of back due rent and 3 months of future rent if you expect to have some challenges in the future. Emergency rental assistance, or ERA, can also assist you with 100% of bills owed for public services such as bill, water, gas and electricity, garbage and internet. But if you have a water bill, and we want to make a distinction about the water bill, it cannot be covered individually. And this is because there's programs assisting folks with water bills. But if you pay rent and all your utilities are included in your rental pay, then you can pay for water that way. So there are ways and loopholes that we can navigate throughout the process. And now I want to talk to you a little bit about the local program here in Santa Clara County. Again, just making a distinction between the state program and the local program here in our county. This is the Quarantine and Isolation Support Program for Santa Clara County. This program helps families or individuals who are currently COVID positive. There is a tie here to COVID and being positive or being affected by COVID, either through an exposure. This program offers 3 very specific services to those folks in quarantine or isolation. The first one is financial assistance to families or individuals who have had a loss of income. And we also provide a 10-day supply of food so you may quarantine or isolate and have the necessary supplies. Also, in the event that you do not have a safe place to isolate or quarantine, the county will provide you with a hotel so that you can isolate safely within your home. And just a couple things to keep in mind, food and supplies are only available to people in isolation or quarantine. If you are not isolated or quarantined, you are not eligible for groceries. Nonetheless, you do have a 90-day grace period from the day that you tested positive for COVID-19 to come back and request financial assistance through the Quarantine and Isolation Support Program in Santa Clara County. So just a couple details, and I'll go more into details about what that means and the application process in the future, in future slides, but next slide. Oh, we're here. So let's start by defining a home. We know that many families live in very unconventional homes. We often, for example, live in congregated settings, or we live with large families, roommates, or other tenants. And this is how we survive, right? Especially during the pandemic and here in the Bay Area with the high rent prices. So even though many families live under the same roof, if they are financially separate, they are considered an independent household, despite living in the same household. Therefore, what is important to note is that more than one family can apply under the same roof as long as it meets the eligibility criteria, which I will speak in future slides. But this is important because if there's a couple families in one roof, they are considered separate households and you're able to apply even if you live in the same roof, under the same roof. Next slide. Before we continue, we also wanted to address the conversation around public charge. And we understand that this conversation is very nuanced and sometimes can be confusing. However, it may present valid concerns for our community. So let's start by defining what public charge is. Public charge is defined and it refers to a person who becomes a dependent of the government for public assistance or becomes a financial burden to the government. However, I want to emphasize that several factors are considered in determining whether a person is likely to become a public charge. Therefore, many times it may not apply to you. Next slide. So let's be specific. When reviewing for public charge, there are only two types of programs that fall within the definition of public charge. This includes programs that gives you money. For example, this can be things like cash aid, the supplemental security income, which is also known as SSI, and the temporary assistance for needy families, or TANF. One thing we do want to emphasize for folks out there and to distribute information is that if you are a parent of a US citizen and you are undocumented, your child can access these services without having an impact to you specifically as a parent. And so that is important to emphasize. And it is critical that we know what types of programs are affecting us, right? The second one is government-funded long-term care. And again, I mentioned that it is critical to know what types of programs are available or affecting us in terms of public charge, because oftentimes we may or may not live in fear and have misinformation and lose the opportunity to apply to programs for which we are eligible and that have nothing to do with public charge. I also want to emphasize that public charge only applies to a very specific category of people. Public charge applies to individuals in three very specific instances. The first is when you enter the US with temporary status. The second instance applies when you request to adjust your temporary status to permanent residence or when you obtain a green card. And finally, the public charge can be applied if you already have a green card and leave the country for more than 180 days without permission. And so again, right, emphasizing that it's a very specific category of people. Next slide. And again, just tying it back to our specific program and emergency rental assistance, the following has been published by UCIS or Immigration, and this is on their website, and they have said that assistance related to the pandemic is not considered public charge. And they've also said requesting emergency rental assistance is not considered public charge. So again, right, just defining what public charge and who it affects and who it impacts, and then tying it to emergency rental assistance, and just making sure that folks know that this will not affect you in terms of public charge. And so now we're going to talk a little bit more about emergency rental assistance and its specifics and how it works. So very quickly, emergency rental assistance, if you've been impacted by COVID-19 and are income eligible, the state will calculate this when you apply, and I will also give you some guidance. And you have unpaid rent or utilities or need help paying your future rent or utilities, you may apply for COVID rental assistance and the rent relief program. And again, right, it provides those 12 months of owed rent and 3 months of future rent. Next slide. So again, here are some very specific points about COVID or rental assistance. And like I keep mentioning, it provides up to 12 months of past due rent and 3 months of future rent. There are conversations that it may be extended. And so it may be up to 6 months in the future. And so again, right, just making sure you take advantage of that because it's 100% paid rent. And it is also important to know that it is not counted as income for renters. So therefore, when it comes down to doing your taxes in the future, it does not have to be reported because it is not counted as income. And again, utility bills are included. The only one that has a specific one is the water bill, like I had mentioned earlier. It cannot be included as part of your application, but if you pay a total rent with utilities included, then it can be. But if it is separate, then you have to go through a separate program in the state of California. And with every utility bill that you have to, or that you would like to be paid and that is owed, it has to be under the person who is applying. It also has to be under their name. And so you have to provide proof. And of course, you can provide documents like your bill or your statement in order to do so. And throughout the process, The applicant will be asked to provide several documents, of course, the most important being your ID. And it'll include very important information regarding household members as well, such as their birth dates, IDs. For minors, there are some exclusions. And again, okay, we're on this slide now. I want to talk to you a little bit about eligibility requirements. Um, so as you can see on the slide, there's a couple eligibility requirements. We can go to the next slide, it's fine. Thank you. So for the eligibility requirements, you will be provided or asked to provide proof of financial hardship due to COVID-19. And again, this can look like many different forms. Either you were let go from work, had your hours reduced, or you're currently experiencing an eviction notice. And so this looks different for many people, but you would be asked to provide proof of that. In addition, at risk of homelessness or housing instability, and a proof of past due rent works. Again, right, it looks different for folks. The income eligibility is at 80% of the area median income. And in a future slide, I will show you what that looks like per household. You will need an email address. When you create your account, you will be asked to create a password. And this password is going to be a long one. It's 12 characters, one uppercase, one lowercase, a number, and a special character. And like I mentioned, most of this work will be done over the internet. And it is essential that you write down your passwords and keep a record of your passwords. If you forget your password, it is not the end of the world, of course, but it will make it significantly challenging to follow up on your behalf and on your request for emergency rental assistance. And also before starting your application, you must have an email address. Most of the communication will be done through email address. And the reason I mention this is because I understand that oftentimes there can be some generational challenges with the use of technology, which sometimes limits accessibility for folks. However, my mom always tells me that a prepared person is worth more than one unprepared person. Sorry, that messed that up. One unprepared person, or one, I'm gonna let it go. So the point is, be prepared. If you know that computers and the internet emails are difficult for you, ask your children, grandchildren, friends, activate your system of support. And it's all about being prepared. So next slide. So here in this slide, you will notice what it looks like for folks in specific household and the amount of folks in your household in specific to your income. So if we look at the arrow for one person being under 80% AMI, it would be a yearly income of 82,000. And for two people in a household, it'd be 94,000. For three people, it'd be under 106,000, all the way up to 8 people in a household, which is 155,000. And so anyone underneath these incomes can apply and is eligible for emergency rental assistance. So if you want to take a screenshot and share this information with folks, please do so. I encourage you to. But it is guided by these income eligibility criteria. Next slide. So in addition, payments are not issued on a first come, first served basis. And this is important to know. The payments are actually being distributed to folks that are most vulnerable and have very specific circumstances and have a higher need than other folks. And this can include folks whose income is very low or whose tenants have already received a 3-day notice or are currently experiencing eviction. And so again, just reiterating that folks that apply will not necessarily be served on a first come, first served basis, rather it's need based and whoever has a higher need at the time of application. But nonetheless, we encourage folks to continue to apply and be a part of the process because we know that this will not be here forever and it will not be funded forever. So take advantage and apply as soon as possible if you feel like you meet eligibility criteria. Next slide, or we are here. So documents needed to apply. They ask for a government ID. And the government ID can be from any country really, as long as it has a valid ID, photo, and identification. So verify residence, and that means, just making sure that you are able to prove that you live where you do, and any type of bill statement or any document that has your name and address will be okay. And again, asking for an email address, verification of the rent that you owe. They will also ask you to verify your income, and you can do this in several different ways. You can use one of the following documents, for example, your 2020 tax returns, your W-2. If you are currently in unemployment, you can use your 1099-G. You can also use your check stub, check stubs. And if you are currently participating in any programs like CalFresh or CalWorks, you can provide proof of that by your letter of acceptance into the program. And if you are someone who currently doesn't have a job or has no income or proof of income, you can still provide your documents via a self-certification form, which you will be provided. And essentially, it is a statement or a form that you can write and certify your own income or lack of income to provide that for the program. So next slide. And here's some information for landlords, which is also very important. The program is actually quite flexible, and it allows folks to be assisted in a variety of different ways. For example, landlords also have the opportunity to apply for rental assistance on behalf of their tenants. If you are a landlord and have tenants who are currently experiencing challenges with paying their rent, you are able to apply through the process as well on your own. Nonetheless, however, we do want to emphasize that your tenants will also be asked to participate and to sign the forms. So the ideal situation is that you apply together so that you are able to receive the assistance. And again, they will be asked to submit the same documents that I had mentioned earlier and to sign the same forms that I had mentioned earlier. And of course, they're also subject to meeting the same eligibility criteria that I had mentioned before. Thanks so much. Next slide. So a few more details regarding the program and for landlords that want to apply. Again, just mentioning that they have to have the same documents and please gather all the information, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses. And when the tenant is approved and is eligible for 100% rent owed, when the landlord participates, the money will go directly to them. And if you are a person that currently is subleasing from someone else, you are still able to apply to the program. Like I mentioned, it's very flexible and many people can apply even if they live within the same household or if they have different renting agreements and it's not necessarily a lease, rather it is a sublease. What you can do is write a very specific letter or a self-certification again, and just being very specific about the terms and the conditions of your sublease. And here's an example, just being specific that you, the person, is renting a room from someone else and the address that you're renting at is such and the amount of rent that you pay, in addition to any utilities that you may have or owe. And again, just dating it and gathering all the information, contact information, and anything that provides assistance or availability to connect and understand your specific circumstance. So again, the program is very flexible and it allows you to apply in many different circumstances. So just some expectations for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. And also very important details. There are no criminal history guidelines that are asked of you or in terms of the eligibility criteria. So it does not ask for criminal history. It also does not require citizenship or immigration status to be a part of the program. You can also apply if there is zero cash or zero income currently. And again, this can be attested through a very specific self-certification form to verify your income. And just some expectations for the program. You can apply, of course, and you can expect to receive assistance and call this toll-free number that is on screen for you, 833-430-2122. And they're currently assisting folks 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week to just receive an update of your application. And we ask folks that you check in every 2 weeks just to receive some updates from the program. And you can only apply for the assistance that you are responsible for. For example, if again, you're renting a room and you don't pay the full rent, you can also apply for that emergency rental assistance. And again, just being specific about what you owe, what are the terms and conditions of your rental agreement, and writing that self-attestation for yourself through the application process. Next slide. So now I'll be talking to you a little bit about the isolation quarantine support program. And again, just kind of shifting gears and letting folks know that this is a local program through the County of Santa Clara to assist families or individuals that are currently COVID positive or have been exposed to COVID-19. Before we do though, I want to take some time just to see if there's any questions or concerns that folks may have regarding ERA, since we are going to move a little bit away from emergency rental assistance. And I'll give folks maybe like 1 or 2 minutes to type in any questions in the chat or anything that you may ask or want to know. Also, water break. I know it's a lot of information for folks. And again, you'll be provided with a copy of all of this information. And at the end, I'll be able to provide you with phone numbers, links, and things that you can check in with to ask your questions and begin the process of application. Okay, so I don't see any questions coming through. If there are, I'll make sure to address them. And again, we'll have some time at the end to answer questions for folks. We'll have a Q&A session, so I'll continue. So next slide, please. Next slide. Sorry, I'm still waiting for the next slide. I'm not sure if it's coming through my end. But I did see a question. Does the ERA program cover people who have missed work due to COVID, as well as people whose work hours were cut due to work circumstances? That's a very important question. Thank you for asking. And yes, that is one of the key criteria for eligibility for emergency rental assistance. Currently, in order to be eligible, you have to have some type of impact because of COVID-19, and the circumstances that have been explained in your question are exactly the kind of circumstances that make you eligible for emergency rental assistance. Again, that is folks who have missed work due to COVID and also have had work hours reduced because of COVID-19, either because their employer reduced their hours or they could no longer work. So yes, you are eligible because of those reasons. So continuing with the isolation and quarantine support program, thank you. The isolation and quarantine support program is a program which was developed here in our county of Santa Clara. And again, it is to support families or individuals who are currently COVID positive or have had an exposure to COVID-19 and have to quarantine or isolate. The program will provide you with several resources and assistance. The first one is financial assistance as well as rental assistance. Those are two separate things that the program will offer you, and I will make some distinctions in a later slide. The program will also offer you food and delivery. It'll provide you with a 10-day supply of groceries and supplies so that you may isolate safely and have the groceries and supplies that you need. In addition, it will also provide you with a hotel room, and the hotel is for folks who cannot isolate safely within their home. Currently, because of the surge of COVID-19 that we're experiencing at the moment, there is low capacity for hotel placement. So we are currently prioritizing folks that are currently unhoused and are experiencing homelessness. And so just keeping that in mind as well, but 3 very specific services for folks. Next slide. And isolation and quarantine eligibility criteria. This includes income. There is an income criteria to COVID-19, and very specifically, in order to be eligible for this program, you had to have had a loss of income. In this case, what that means is if I normally work 40 hours and I have COVID-19 and I have to isolate or say, isolate or quarantine, and my employer is not providing me with sick leave, COVID hours, or I don't have any vacation time, personal time, that means I have experienced a loss of income because I'm not being paid, I'm not receiving that compensation. If that is your circumstance, then you are eligible for the program. And again, there's a very specific tie to being living here in Santa Clara County. It's for Santa Clara County residents only, and there are some participating cities. If you are within a participating city, then you are eligible. And I'll also talk about participating cities in a future slide. And then there's also the 80% AMI for income eligibility guideline. And again, we talked about that earlier and what that looks like. So I had mentioned earlier about participating cities. The County of Santa Clara will provide all of its cities with hotel placement. However, for the cities that are currently marked in red, and this includes Mountain View, Campbell, Cupertino, Gilroy, Los Gatos, Montesarino, Palo Alto, Santa Clara, and Sunnyvale, these are cities that are currently providing these same services on their own without the County of Santa Clara, which means you are still able to get services in these cities, but it'll be directly with them and not with the County of Santa Clara. You can call our phone number and we will give you the direct phone number and contact for those folks. But if you live in the cities of Los Altos Hills, Milpitas, Morgan Hill, San Jose, Saratoga, then you are eligible to receive all the services through the County of Santa Clara. And again, that is rental assistance, financial assistance, groceries, and supplies, as well as hotel placement through our county systems. Next slide. So here's the difference between financial assistance and rental assistance. For the financial assistance, we are providing folks with a one-time payment of $2,000 for one individual. And if there is two or more individuals in the household, we will provide $2,500. And this is one-time payment for an individual or family who is currently experiencing COVID. And these funds can be used at your discretion to whatever you feel is appropriate, whether that is rent, whether that is food, bills, or anything that you may think is appropriate. And the difference with rental assistance is that it can go up to $5,000 towards a month of rent and utilities. So the County of Santa Clara will also provide you with rental assistance. In this case, it is only for 1 month, and it does have a cap in terms of how much rental assistance you can receive, which is up to $5,000 towards 1 month of rental assistance. This process, however, is slightly more extensive because it requires a couple more steps and a couple more documents asked of you. For example, the check will be given to the landlord and not to you specifically. It will also ask the involvement of the landlord, and it will ask that the landlord sign a W-9 so that we're able to provide the check for rental assistance. And again, just reminding folks that this process oftentimes is a little longer and it requires more documents. For example, some of the documents can include a rental agreement. A lot of the times folks go with the financial assistance because it is quite easy. And I've worked in assisting folks with financial assistance. And a couple years back, this process was actually quite difficult, whether you went to different programs. And because of COVID-19, this has become incredibly accessible, very easy, trying to get services into people's hands. And so the financial assistance is actually one of the most accessible that I have seen in a couple years. It's a very quick and easy process. And many of the times folks go with the financial assistance. But again, if you feel like you need the rental assistance, not trying to discourage folks from applying, it's also a very easy process, just requires more time and more documents. So here are some of the required documents. We will require an identification. And again, the ID can be from any country, as long as it has your picture and it identifies you, of course. We also ask for a proof of address or residence of Santa Clara County, and you can use any formal mail, letter, bill, or statement that has your name and address. And if you do not have a proof of address, Again, just using any formal mail. And again, for the income, you can use a couple documents or two documents to be able to certify your income. You can use your pay stubs, or you can also do a self-certification for folks that do not have pay stubs or don't get paid in a check. And the self-certification will be done through an online platform that is called DocuSign. This online platform will allow you to fill in the form, to sign it, and once it's signed, we received an electronic copy and it'll be processed. So again, just if you want to take a screenshot of the eligibility criteria and the documents required, please do so. Next slide. So here are some expectations. Currently, we are working with folks and are able to assist folks within 24 hours of being assisted. We typically have a bandwidth to call folks 3 times. If we don't hear from them, unfortunately, the case will be closed. So we will attempt at least 3 calls per individual just to make sure that we are able to provide the service. And the client assists or receives assistance within 7 to 10 days. And this is actually quite fast. The county is moving very fast. For groceries and food, on average, we are delivering them within 1 to 2 days of processing the intake. And then for financial assistance, as soon as folks send in their documents via mail, we'll process them on that same day. And we're doing overnight shipping for the check. And so I would say within a week or so, you should have assistance and you should have the financial assistance as well. So it's a very quick process. And so again, urging folks, or if you know someone that is currently in or has COVID and is isolating or is exposed, please refer them over to the program. And so here's just some FAQs that we'll go through. Do I need a social security number or an ITIN or ITIN to apply for any of these programs? And no, either if it's rental assistance or if it's COVID-19 assistance through the county, you do not need an SSN or an ITIN to apply. So many of the questions that folks ask is, can I receive assistance from the Isolation and Quarantine Support Program, as well as the COVID-19 ERA or Emergency Rental Assistance? And the great thing about this is that, yes, if you have not received assistance for the same month, you can receive assistance from both of these programs. And that is just the, I guess, caveat of that. You cannot receive assistance from Santa Clara County for the same month. Let's say I applied for December and Santa Clara County assisted me for December, then I can't receive assistance for December from emergency rental assistance from the state, but I can still apply for all the other months that I still owe or future rent that you may owe in the future. And so you can definitely apply for both. Just know that if you receive assistance from the county for 1 month, you can't receive assistance from ERA for that same month, but you are still able to receive assistance for all the other months. So in essence, yes, you can receive assistance from both programs, just not the same month. If I did not qualify for the Isolation or Quarantine Support Program, could I qualify for the California Emergency Rental Assistance Program? And the answer is yes. You are able to receive assistance from one program despite the fact that you did not qualify for the other. And so please don't feel discouraged if you are denied from one program. More than likely, there's a possibility that you are eligible and will receive services from the other program. So still apply, still take advantage of both, because you are eligible to apply for both, even if you don't receive assistance from one or the other. So we also wanted to have a conversation about your rights, especially for folks that are currently experiencing eviction. And this is very important because despite the fact that the moratorium has ended, you still have rights, and there's still very important details to applying for emergency rental assistance that can safeguard your rights in the process. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that. So next slide. So how can ERA assistance help stop evictions? One of the important things about applying for emergency rental assistance is that it actually can help you stop your eviction process. A court should not issue summons if the tenant has submitted or completed an application for rental assistance within 20 days of receiving the 3-day notice, which means if you currently have a 3-day notice or are currently experiencing eviction, if you apply for emergency rental assistance, the court cannot proceed with your eviction because you're in the process of receiving assistance. Even if it does not necessarily get approved, the fact that you've applied, the fact that you're in the process, and the fact that you're in that process can actually stop your eviction. And it is a legal mandate where the court cannot necessarily move forward with your eviction, which is important for folks. So to know as a loophole or as a safeguard or as a right to take advantage of. And at any point before, the tenant should be able to stop an eviction if they submit verification to the court that their application for rental assistance has been approved. So if you are approved, of course, then the eviction can definitely stop and you are able to stay. And so that's also very important to note. And tenants may need help with expedited approvals, but no need for expedited payments. So what this means is when you are applying for the process of emergency rental assistance and you're currently experiencing eviction or you have a 3-day notice, remember that I said that applications are being approved based on a need base and not first come, first serve. The emergency rental assistance will actually expedite your approval, but it will not necessarily expedite your payment. By expediting your approval, again, this means that your eviction notice, your 3-day notice is stopped. And if you provide proof to the court, the eviction itself is dismissed in the court because it is approved and because we know the payment is coming. And so that is very important for folks to know and to take advantage if they are currently going through that 3-day notice or eviction process, because you still have rights despite the eviction moratorium ending. So next slide. And again, we want to remind folks that you are not alone in this process, and there is various community partners, organizations that are currently doing the work to assist you and to empower and to advocate for your rights. The first one is the Law Foundation, and please take a screenshot or a picture of the services and resources that are in our community. The Law Foundation can provide you with legal assistance to help you navigate eviction or any questions regarding your housing. There's also the Project Sentinel and Access to Justice court mediation programs. Again, urging folks to take a picture or jot down these numbers in the case that you may need them or you find yourself having to provide these information to other folks. So in this process, we want to also make sure that folks know what the process looks like. If a tenant receives a 3-day notice, make sure to let the tenant know the following. Do not necessarily move out right away. If the tenant has already applied for rental assistance, the tenant needs to provide their landlord a copy of the renter to landlord letter and a copy of the program participation letter. This letter shows that the tenant applied for rental assistance, provides application ID and application status. If the tenant has not yet applied for rental assistance, do not move out, but make sure to complete an application for rental assistance as soon as possible. Eligible renters continue to have special eviction protections under the state law from October 1 through the end of March 2022. So again, it's just reiterating what I had mentioned before. If you apply for emergency rental assistance, make sure that you follow these steps so that you are able to prove to your landlord that you are currently in the process of applying for emergency rental assistance, as you do have that right to do so. And again, just being mindful of the dates, October through the end of March of 2022. And again, here is just another resource page for you. You can take a screenshot and it includes some of the folks that I had mentioned before, like the Law Foundation, in addition to Asian Law Alliances, Santa Clara County Bar Association, and just other resources that is important in terms of eviction and having the proper advocates and community partners by your side to do this together. So where do I start in terms of the process, right? You already have the required documents, so start by preparing all the necessary information. Call the hotline when all the information is ready and the documents are gathered, and then help with the application in your own language is available. If you choose to do this on your own, you're able to do so. Like I mentioned, it is a process that you can do online. You can log in, create your profile, and start doing the process by yourself and uploading the documents as well. Nonetheless, there are community partners that are currently helping you do this work as well. And I'll send some information regarding where the community partners can be reached at. But again, right, just being prepared, start the process, gather your documents, and if you need assistance in a specific language, the line itself will provide you that language capacity as well. So again, just providing information regarding the COVID-19 isolation and quarantine support program. If you are currently COVID positive, or if you're currently in isolation because you've been exposed, please call, it's called IQSP or IQ, and we can assist you with both emergency rental assistance applications, as well as an application for the COVID-19 unit that can provide you these assistance. And the phone number is here, 408-808-7770. We're open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and we do have some capacities on the weekends. If we do not respond right away, please do leave us a voicemail. We have folks assigned specifically to just returning voicemails. So because there is a surge, there is a high volume of calls currently. Nonetheless, please do leave a voicemail so that you have saved your time in line, and you will receive a call within a day or two from your voicemail. And so how do we start with the state application, right? So you start your own application by visiting the websites, and I'll provide you a link to that in a minute. You can call one of the local agencies helping with this process, and I'll also provide you with those phone numbers and connections. If you start the process and decide you need help, you can start your work and ask for assistance later. You can always start, leave it, and then come back to it as well. The website has resources for you in English, Spanish, Korean, Vietnamese, Chinese, and Tagalog. You can also apply on your phone if you want to. I would recommend that you apply on a desktop if possible so that you can upload documents and not miss any specific information. If you text 211211, they will give you initial screening questions and will link you to the website and will provide you the necessary resources for you to start the process as well if you want to go that route. Next slide. And so what you're seeing on screen is the landing page for emergency rental assistance with the state of California. And what you see at the bottom is 3 very different links. All these 3 links will take you to the same website. It's different access points for different folks, communities, and organizations. But nonetheless, the links will take you to the same website. The first one is housingisca.gov. The second one is laviviendaesclave.com. And the third one is www.housing.ca.gov. And this is essentially what it looks like for the landing page. So if you want to take a screenshot, please do so. Okay, so here is just some guidance. If you decide to start the application on your own, we will give you a renter's checklist essentially. So check off new application box or continuing applicant. When you start the application, it'll ask for address and zip code. And then you will get an eligibility quiz that will ask you questions to determine if you are eligible so that you don't start the process and then be told later that you are not. You can add a user to your application. If someone else is helping you, But just make sure that if someone it's someone that you trust and that you can have and give that trust to, and that way your application isn't necessarily deleted or something happens, but you can add a user to your application to receive assistance. The process will ask how many months you have not paid and or amounts paid. And again, just doing that eligibility screening. The application will also ask about any late fees that you may have, whether it's because you moved or any late fees associated to your rent being paid at a late time. The application will ask about household members and income of household members. Make a list of all members, birth dates, and income. So when you apply, you have to include folks that are within your home if they are part of your application. And they'll ask you again for those birth dates, their income, and all of that. If you have missed some information, the application will not let you proceed. So this is one of the key components of the application, is that it has to be complete in order to proceed. And again, just review the application before your final submission, just to make sure that everything is correct and you have the best chance of being approved. And we encourage landlords and tenants to inform and work together with each other to complete the application. But nonetheless, ideally, you want to work with your landlord. You want to make sure that they are informed and you're keeping them up to date about your rental assistance so that they know that it's in process. But if your landlord doesn't necessarily want to cooperate or be a part of the application, please know that you're still encouraged to apply. You don't have to have your landlord to being a part of it, and vice versa. You can apply on your own. The application is very flexible. And we provided a screenshot of what the emails look like. It's coming from Neighborly Software, which can be kind of foreign, but keep in mind that it's coming from this particular software. So again, just reminding folks that there are many local organizations that are currently helping you apply for rental assistance, and these local partners can assist you, especially if you don't have access to internet or you need help filling out the application or there is a language barrier. Please call the phone number that you see on screen to schedule an appointment. Some community partner organizations are doing in-person appointments that you can go to. Other folks are helping you over the phone. And again, remember that I mentioned you can add a user to your application. So we'll add the user and they'll do the application for you. They'll confirm, they'll have you log in just to make sure that everything is correct. So whatever your comfortability level is, if you want to go in person, if you want to do it over the phone, you have those options available to you. And again, there is the link to start an application on your own if you'd like, housingiskey.com. And this is just some symbols for the community partners and organizations that are currently doing the work to help you assist you with emergency rental assistance. In San Jose, if you want to receive assistance, there is the San Jose City Hall on the 12th floor, and they're taking folks 8 a.m. from 5 p.m. If you wanted to receive assistance in San Jose, you can also go to Franklin McKinley School District, the office, and they're supporting folks Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Wednesdays, they do so from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. And there's their address. And again, if you want to have an appointment in person and have the language capacity for English or Spanish, you can email the last email here or the phone number you can call and schedule an appointment with folks. If you are in the city of Mountain View, currently you are supported in the Mountain View Public Library. And again, room 205 on the second floor. Or if you want in-person assistance, please call the phone number here or the email to schedule an appointment for folks. And again, being mindful of Thursdays, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. being their capacity to do so. And lastly, For the County of Santa Clara, specifically, if you'd like to be supported through the County of Santa Clara, there is the Story Road Hub Services Center, and this is outside of the Health Department office between Patelco and Harbor Freight Tools, and that's the address. However, there is an update to that because of the COVID surge. The Story Road Hub services are currently moving to over the phone, or if you want to schedule an in-person application, um, here is the assistance from Monday 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Next slide. So again, just sending some reminders to folks, apply to the COVID-19 Emergency Rental Assistance Program. We know that it won't be funded for forever, and so take advantage while it's here. And again, just reminding folks, if you have a 3-day notice to apply for rental assistance, even if you do not necessarily get approved, it can extend your time and give you a little bit more leeway. And again, remember that you have rights throughout this entire process. And at the end of the day, one of the things that we always remind folks is just to share what is true. At the end of the day, this is a formal application with the state of California and with the County of Santa Clara. And we just ask folks, share what is true. Oftentimes we know that we try to necessarily to meet eligibility criterias. But we say to folks, just share what is truthful. This is a formal application. With that being said, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And this, we're moving into a section for questions or concerns that folks may have. We do have here folks from the Emergency Rental Assistance Program that are ready to answer your questions if folks have any. Thank you so much. And this would be a great time for folks to either type in their questions on the chat, or if we are able to unmute, I'm not sure if you can, please do so and ask your questions. But thanks so much for your time. So there's a question here that says, how about missing work due to a vaccine reaction? For the quarantine or isolation support program in Santa Clara County, you have to have had an exposure to COVID, or you have had to have COVID, and you have to be in quarantine or isolation in order to be eligible for the program. And so unfortunately, a vaccine reaction and missing work would not necessarily be counted as that. But if you resulted in a loss of income and you did not receive assistance through your employer, you're more than welcome to give us a call, and we can do a screening process and see if there's an eligibility criteria that we can assist you with. But again, just reminding folks, it's specific to emergency rental assistance and financial assistance. It has to be because of COVID-19 being positive or isolation. And again, that's just for the County of Santa Clara. For the local or state program in California, it's only an impact, not necessarily that you have to be COVID positive. And there's another question, does the ERA program cover people who have missed work due to COVID, as well as people whose work hours were cut due to work circumstances? And yes, the answer is yes. With the state program, you do not have to have COVID, but you do have to be impacted by COVID-19, which means your employer reduced your hours, you were unable to continue working, you were laid off, or your place of work shut down. All of those count as eligibility criteria to be eligible for the program. So yes. There's another question. I work with a lot of families in Santa Clara County that are coming out of transitional housing units, some experiencing COVID and homelessness. Would they be able to receive support? And the answer is yes. For the County of Santa Clara, we currently have the Quarantine and Isolation Support Program, like I mentioned, and we are currently prioritizing folks that are unhoused, especially if they have COVID-19 and they do not have a place to isolate. Please refer them over to the county program and they will receive a hotel placement through one of our county systems. And they might be also eligible for financial assistance if they have lost income throughout the process of any kind. It doesn't necessarily have to be a formal income. If we receive emergency rental assistance for 2021, are we able to receive assistance again for 2022, January, February specifically? And yes, the program can assist you with future rent so long as you have not been assisted for those months already. But yes, you are still able to receive assistance. Please feel free to ask more questions. This is your time. If you have any burning questions or concerns, I'm happy to assist you or answer the questions. And again, right, just encouraging folks to apply and or to send this information to someone that you need. We understand that oftentimes the information isn't disseminated or spread out and the awareness isn't always there through either our county or the state, but we try and do our best to community presentations and to spread this, right? A lot of the times our communities spread the information through word to word and in person. So this is important. And so hopefully if you know someone, you can let them know, share this on your personal pages and just spread the word so that folks are aware of it, either because they're currently COVID positive or they're experiencing homelessness or an eviction notice. I mean, so many different circumstances that folks may experience, but equally important to spread the information because we never know who may be able to benefit. And especially right now, there's currently a COVID surge. And so there's a lot of folks that are, again, going into quarantine or isolation. So they may benefit from the quarantine and isolation support program through the County of Santa Clara. So I don't see any additional questions coming through the chat. And so that would be the end of our presentation. But again, I'll stick around if folks want to add additional questions. But other than that, the presentation is over for today. Thank you so much, all of you, for coming.